continue our discussion and we will talk about the micronutrients related to nutrition that you need to remember for your exams and some things from the recommended dietary allowances update somewhere in September or October 2020. So this chapter is in conjugation with a lot of overlaps and a lot of topics have already been covered in your community ophthalmology lecture for vitamin A prophylaxis program, as well as many topics are being shared with the biochemistry as well. So for any skipped out things or any things which you need more detail, you need to do in conjugation with the biochemistry topics on micronutrients and with community ophthalmology. So let's get going and let's talk about some of the micronutrients. First MCQ. What do you mean by a hidden hunger? Hidden hunger. Hidden hunger. It's like a hunger which was hidden inside. This hidden hunger is nothing but a micronutrient deficiency, which is the most common cause of micronutrient deficiency, which is the most common cause of hidden hunger. That is iron deficiency among all the things. But if asked about the vitamin, which is most common cause of the vitamin in the vitamins group, which is the cause of hidden hunger, it would be vitamin A. So these are two big problems that our country is facing. Let's have a few words about vitamin A. See, all the recommended dietary allowance for carbohydrate, protein, fats, for all the micronutrients, I have dealt in a separate section. So right now I'm going to talk about salient features from public health point of view, MCQs from vitamin A from public health point of view. What are the sources of vitamin A amongst the natural sources? Please remember the richest source is a halibut fish. Other sources would be cod fish, general cod fish. Halibut is also one of the cod fishes, but halibut fish is the richest source if you get in your MCQ. Other sources could be cod fish. Other vegetarian sources for vitamin A could be all the yellow and orange and those colorful fruits and vegetables. Like papaya is there, mango is there. So all these yellow, orange colored, yellow or red colored fruits and vegetables, these are all good sources of vitamin A. A couple of things about the vitamin A prophylaxis program. Just a very brief about the prophylaxis program. This vitamin A prophylaxis program typically caters to age group 6 months till 5 years. So from 6 months till 1 year or till technically 9 months, we are giving at the rate of 1 lakh international units of vitamin A. 1 lakh international units vitamin A, and from 1 year onwards till 5 years, we are giving at the rate of 2 lakh international units. This is given as 6 monthly doses. This is given as 6 monthly doses. In totality, in vitamin A program, there are 9 doses which are given, and in total 17 lakh international units per child is consumed by a single child. 1 lakh international unit corresponds to 1 ml, and obviously 2 lakh will correspond to 2 ml. How is this 1 ml given? It is given by a spoon which is already provided with the vitamin A bottle. This spoon has a inner circle and an outer circle. The outer circle, it corresponds to 2 ml, and of course the inner circle will correspond to 1 ml, and the ASHA worker or the Anganwadi worker, they are going to give that much amount to the child. Under this program, the school teachers have also been involved under the school health vision screening program, and the level of white dot spots in the community is one of the most important indicator for vitamin A deficiency in the country. White dot spots in the community should be less than 0.5% among the school going children. And in case we are talking of night blindness in the school, blindness in the school should be less than 1% among the school going children. So that's an important MCQ for you, that vitamin A you're giving to the country, but how do you check for vitamin A? We check using vitamin A night blindness related night blindness, or we can check with white dot spots. Next is point number 3, a couple of things about the vitamin B group. In that vitamin B, I presume that many of things you must have learned from biochemistry, but there is something called as parboiling. What is this parboiling and what does it have to do with the vitamin B complex? There is a rice. You must have seen that paddy fields. In that paddy fields, there will be a rice grain. Rice grows. So once the rice grows in the paddy field, they will take that rice, do thrashing. The rice grains are picked up and it is sent for dehusking, and dehusking happens, and then this is sent for milling of the rice grain, and after milling it is sent for the polishing of the rice grain. So once you polish the rice, this whole rice, it shines and it sells like anything in the market, and we all buy it and eat a very good biryani out of that. So it's a very long grain rice. It's a beautiful white colored rice. But the point in all this thing, by all this polishing and milling and dehusking, what happens is every rice has an outer layer, or every cereal has an outer layer. This outer layer is an endosperm layer called as alluron layer. It is endosperm. Now this alluron layer is rich in B complex vitamins, specifically talking vitamin B1. It is specifically in B1, B2, but of course many vitamins are there in this alluron layer. So in this process of milling and polishing and all these things, we just lose off this alluron, and therefore we lose the vitamin B. So what we can do is we can do a process of parboiling. So what you do is you boil this rice, or you put it in, soak in hot water or warm water. So once you soak this rice in warm water, the alluron layer swells up, and due to osmosis, the vitamins, they come inside. So now this rice or the grain, it looks like a swollen up rice, like if you have eaten a very big buffet in 5-star for 10 days. So you'll be all swollen up, and the alluron layer is gone, and of course it is devoid of the vitamins. So where are the vitamins? The vitamins are inside the rice. So now this rice is called as a parboiled rice. Parboiled rice means soaking in warm water, soaking in hot/warm water, and then boiling in the same water. This causes the loss of the alluron layer, or at least the thinning of the alluron layer, and it preserves the vitamin. So this parboiled rice is rich in vitamin. Which vitamin? It is rich in vitamin B1. And of course, all the vitamins are rich in this alluron layer, and with parboiling, we preserve these vitamins. So these are a couple of things which you need to know. Also, I would like to tell you point number 4 probably, that in vitamin B12, you must be learning that what is the best sources of vitamin B12. Please remember that B12 is predominantly an animal source vitamin. Plant sources do not occur for vitamin B12. So all those who are vegetarian, they probably need to take some exogenous source of vitamin B12, or they would land up into problems with anemia and so on and so forth. Next is point number 5. What about the vitamin C? Please remember that vitamin C is a very important. It is used for enzymes in the body, enzyme reactions in the body. And vitamin C is predominantly useful in some species in the whole ecosystem, specifically talking humans and our friend or ancestors, that is the monkeys. And it is also useful for guinea pigs. And these are the few of the species who require vitamin C for their biological functions and their body function. Next MCQ that you need to remember is, what are the rich sources of vitamin C? Vitamin C, I know that you all know, our rich sources are the citrus fruits or all these things, peppers, they are all good in vitamin C. But do you know which is the richest source of vitamin C? The richest source of vitamin C is amla. What is amla? It is an Indian gooseberry. In fact, in COVID times, people are taking vitamin C and zinc tablets. These both help build immunity. They are immunoboosters and immunomodulators. So vitamin C and zinc can be asked in your exams. Anyways, let's move forward and talk about point number 6. Let's talk some things about iron. MCQs on iron. What are the rich sources of iron? The sources of iron can predominantly be of two types. We can have non-heme sources or heme sources. Heme means animal, right? So heme sources, or we can have non-heme sources. Non-heme sources are what are green leafy vegetables like spinach, like any other green leafy vegetables, amaranth, any other green leafy vegetable, coriander, any other green leafy vegetable, mint. So there are couple of green leafy vegetables. You do not need to stick to your answer with spinach only. Spinach is the only one answer which we normally get. Other non-heme sources could be dates, right? So these are some of the richest sources of non-heme sources of iron. Heme sources are all animal foods. Over here, you'll be surprised I'm not writing jaggery, which you were thinking that I'll be writing as the first thing. Please remember that jaggery, I agree, is very rich in iron. But jaggery is made from sugarcane, and sugarcane is devoid of iron or not rich in iron. So why does jaggery have a lot of iron? Jaggery has iron because of the iron from the container in which jaggery is being made. So I cannot say that jaggery is a rich natural source of iron, and moreover jaggery doesn't grow on trees. We make jaggery. If you start making jaggery in aluminium utensils, probably you'll start getting aluminium rich jaggery. So anyways, point for you are two, that jaggery is not a natural source. Jaggery is rich in iron. It is in fact very rich in iron, overloaded with iron, and jaggery is not a natural source, and jaggery is richest in iron. It is in fact very overloaded with iron, right? So, but of course it's not the natural source. Coming to the next part, that what are the heme and the non-heme sources? Out of them, which one will have high bioavailability? Please remember that the bioavailability of iron in animal sources, it could range from anything from 15 till 20 till 30%. So that's the bioavailability depending on some promoting factors or inhibitory factors. But non-heme iron, it has a bioavailability of only 5 to 7%. There is one thing which is a non-heme source but has high bioavailability, you need to remember, that is human milk. The human milk is the only milk which has a bioavailability of 60 to 70%. That is very high bioavailability. So please remember, human milk is the exception, that human milk has the highest amount of bioavailability. So we are still on iron. Another point that you would like to remember is that, do you know that 1 gram of hemoglobin, it contains 3.47 milligrams of iron. And therefore, so every hemoglobin contains this much iron, and therefore, so if you lose 1 ml of blood, so 1 ml of blood loss, assuming a hemoglobin in a person at the rate of 15 grams per deciliter. So if the hemoglobin concentration is this much, and if a person loses 1 ml of blood, they will lose 0.5 milligrams of iron. And in your body, how much is the total iron that we have? In your total body, you have roughly 3 to 5 grams of iron only. So that means in a female who is menstruating, or in a person who's got a blood loss, they might rapidly develop iron deficiency. Do you know that how many females in India are having iron deficiency? I'm not talking anemia. How many females in India are iron deficient? 99% of females, 98 to 99% of females in India are iron deficient. Out of them, how many are anemic? 50%. That is roughly 50% of the all Indian females, they are iron deficient anemic. So anemia is a big headache, and anemia causes postpartum hemorrhage. Anemia may be secondary cause of uterine atony. Anemia is so many causes of so many things. So anemia is a big problem in India, and that's the reason we have this iron deficiency anemias, and you have the Anemia Mukt Bharat and so many things. So these are some of your sources and the resources, and this is why we study iron. And please remember that there are also sometimes question asked on that, how does the iron absorption takes place? What are the iron absorption promoters and what are the iron absorption inhibitors? Iron absorption promoters, I think even the rickshawala in our country knows it now, that it is vitamin C. So anybody, any Tom, Dick and Harry in the world, in the country knows that the absorption promoters of iron in our body is vitamin C. The more vitamin C we take, the more iron is absorbed, and that's why on the salad you put that vitamin C. You put a lemon on your salad, on cucumbers and on green leafy vegetable. There is a rationale behind that, to have maximum iron extraction out of that green leafy vegetables. And in case you are talking of the iron inhibitors, what are the iron inhibitors? These are the phytates, then you have the oxalates, then you have very important calcium. Because calcium is very low in human milk and because vitamin C is higher in human milk, that is the reason that human milk has such a good bioavailability. So please remember, calcium oxalate, phytates, phosphates, these are all tannins. These are all pure iron absorption inhibitors. That's why we avoid females to take tea or coffee with their food, because that is actually an iron inhibitor. Next is final MCQ, and we're still on iron. What is the evaluation parameters? The evaluation parameters for iron that we have in our country, you can check the hemoglobin levels. You can check for serum ferritin levels, or you can also check for the serum iron levels. You can also check for serum transferrin levels. So technically we are not using serum iron levels. That is not very sensitive, and we don't have a methodology to assess serum transferrin level on the mass basis. So serum transferrin saturation, not serum transferrin, it is actually a transferrin saturation. Transferrin saturation is, we don't have the facility to check for transferrin saturation at all the mass level. So transferrin saturation is also a very good clinical indicator. In the clinics, we may use it as, it's a sensitive tool and we may use it in the clinical scenario. But serum ferritin is one of the most commonly used indicator for assessment of iron deficiency, especially in low anemic areas. In low anemia areas where the anemia prevalence is low, in those areas, which is the best indicator, it will be serum ferritin levels. Serum ferritin levels. And hemoglobin is one of the epidemiological indicator. It is the epidemiological indicator to be used in all the areas. It's a community level indicator. Community level indicator. And community level indicator, it is the most common cause of low hemoglobin, is one of the most common cause of anemia, I think needless to say. So these are the some points you need to remember about iron. Recommended dietary allowance, I'm going to deal it in very short while. Next is question number 7 or point number 7, I think. Let us talk about iodine. Iodine. For iodine, we also discussed during our National Iodine Deficiency Disorder program quite much in detail. But over here from MCQ point of view, what are the sources of iodine? The sources of iodine in this world, in this planet, are only two. Either you have the soil or you have the sea. Either you get iodine from soil or you get from sea, and you and me as humans, we don't eat sea, we don't eat soil. So how do we get iodine? In soil, the most common or the richest sources of food from iodine is onion. It is potato. These are rich sources of iodine. If you talk about the sea, you don't eat sea, right? So don't answer fish also. The richest source of iodine is a Japanese seaweed. It's a Japanese seaweed. So if you get an MCQ, please mark, So if you get an MCQ, please mark seaweed as one of the richest sources. If you get very highly specific MCQ, that's a Japanese seaweed. So that is the richest source of iodine. Other sources for iodine could be your fish. We can have prawns, lobsters, whatever you want to say as the rich sources of iodine. I'm not saying salt over here, just of the same reason as I didn't say jaggery and iron. On the same grounds, I don't say salt and iodine as a rich source of iodine, because of course you iodize the salt and that's the reason you get good amount of iodine in the salt. Next is, what are goitrogens? Goitrogens. These are some of the food substances which cause goiter or which cause iodine deficiency. So which are the goitrogens? These are the Brassica group of vegetables. Brassica group of vegetables, and they are basically iodine inhibitors. They are iodine inhibitors. And what are the Brassica group of vegetables? I think everybody knows it again. The answer is cabbage, cauliflower, and gourd or turnip. But the main answer would be cabbage and cauliflower. These are technically called as the Brassica group of vegetables. You also must have learnt it during your discussion in National Iodine Deficiency Program that which of the following would be the best indicators for assessing the iodine level in the community. So for assessing the iodine sufficient community, you can check for the goiter prevalence in the area. Goiter prevalence can be checked. So we are talking of the indicators. So next is, what are the indicators? The indicators could be goiter prevalence. Other indicators could be urinary iodine excretion. Other indicators could be T3 levels, T4 levels, and TSH levels. We can also have neonatal hypothyroidism, or we can have the cretinism rates. So out of these MCQs, which of the following is the most important epidemiological indicator? Urinary iodine excretion is, please remember, it is one of the most important epidemiological indicator. In fact, in most of the areas, goiter prevalence and urinary iodine excretion, they are done hand in hand, and these both form the basic indicators. But of course, if you get one answer, please mark urinary iodine excretion. Neonatal hypothyroidism, on the other hand, is a very sensitive marker. It's a hospital-based marker, right? We can't do it for the general community every time, because when a child is born, at that time, if we do it, we check for the hypothyroid states. So it's a sensitive marker for assessment of the National Iodine Deficiency Disorder Control Program as such. Because you have a neonatal hypothyroidism rates in 2020, you must be having neonatal hypothyroidism rates in 2015, you must be having them in 2010. So we can see that after 5 years, what is happening to the neonatal hypothyroidism rates. Because neonatal hypothyroidism will be dependent on the mummy hypothyroidism. So if the mother is iodine sufficient, then the baby will be iodine sufficient. So please remember that the recommended dietary allowances for the iodine has also changed. We are going to discuss. But please remember, these are the things you need to remember from iodine topic. So now what you have done is all the micronutrients which were required from public health point of view. I know I might have missed some topics, but those topics have already been covered and you will be learning them in your biochemistry sessions. So with that, let's move to the topic number 8. Let us move to some of the other minerals and metals which you may be asked in your exam. If you talk about fluorides, the fluorides levels in the body that we require is 0.5 to 0.8 milligrams per day. The fluoride is called as a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword. Why do we call it as a double-edged sword? Because if you take less, if it is deficient, it may lead to caries, dental caries. And if you take in excess, again you are in a big problem. That is, you land up into a fluorosis. You have skeletal fluorosis, dental fluorosis, so many things. So if you take less, it is problem. If you take more, it is problem. If it is less, that is easy to treat. How do you treat it? You give them supplements. Simple answer. You give them supplements. And in case it is excess, then you need to defluoridate the water. How will you defluoridate the water? We do it using a Nalgonda technique. Nalgonda technique is used to defluoridate the water. Fluoride levels, please remember, is a double-edged sword. Coming back to your MCQs. Next is zinc. Zinc can be asked in your exam. Why? Because it has been, do you know that zinc has been used as treatment and management and prophylaxis of COVID-19 infections? Zinc and vitamin C, they both work in conjugation to prevent many of the viral infections. So zinc can be asked in an exam that it is an immunomodulator. Based on this, you should know what are the immunomodulators, or which are technically the antioxidants. The antioxidants are those which are going to prevent any tissue injury in our body. So if you talk about the vitamins which are antioxidants are A, B, C, and D and E. So except D, don't count D, except D, all the vitamins are antioxidants. Out of A is antioxidant. B, which one? B is the second alphabet, so B2. C is antioxidant, E is antioxidant. A, B, C, E are B2. A, B2, C and E is what you need to remember for your exam. These are the antioxidant vitamins. Apart from that, you also need to remember some of the enzymes which are antioxidant. The enzymes which can be antioxidants are superoxide dismutase. Then we have catalase enzyme. And then you also have some of the other minerals and metals. For example, zinc, it is an antioxidant. Selenium is an antioxidant. Copper is an antioxidant. Flavonoids, these are antioxidants. So these are a couple of things which you need to remember for your exams, which are antioxidants or which can act as immunomodulators. Next is copper. Nothing very special about copper, but yes, copper you have already done. It is also an antioxidant. So if there is a deficiency of copper, in case of deficiency of copper in the body, the first thing to happen is neutropenia. Neutropenia is a very sensitive marker of the copper deficiency. In cases of copper excess, the patient may land up into hyperthyroid states, myocardial infarction, so many things. And of course, you know the genetic disorder with copper metabolism, that is Wilson's disease. Chromium works for carbohydrate metabolism. In very simple language, it will cause the deficiency or the excess may cause insulin disturbances and may cause hampering of the insulin action. In simple words, it may lead to diabetes mellitus, and it has been implicated as a risk factor for diabetes mellitus. Chromium metal. Selenium and molybdenum. Molybdenum is for bones. Just remember, that's how I have remembered. It is for bones and it is for GI cancer. It is a risk factor for GI cancer, stomach cancer, esophageal cancer, oral cancer. It has been implicated as known risk factor for the cancers of GI system. And it is also used in bone metabolism, mineral metabolism. Selenium. I think you must have read that research article. It was a famous research in Lancet, and I think in Nature also it was published, that selenium works for myocardial stability. So it was found out that in people who developed MI in young age group, the selenium levels were low. So selenium may have a role, I'm still in research phase, may have a role to play in cardiac stability or in myocardial infarctions or cardiac diseases, coronary artery diseases. And of course, selenium, we all know it's an antioxidant. It's a beautiful antioxidant and it works for the immunity as well. So these are some of the metals which you need to know. Now we come over to the next topic. We come to the next head. We are going to discuss the recommended dietary allowance for this year 2020. So in this whole recommended dietary allowances, there might be many things which have changed. It's a big guideline and I have tried to consolidate everything. So I will be writing down something over here. In your copies, you have to take down those notes and of course, remember some of the tables which I will be putting as highlighting some things. Okay. So two things you need to take care, whatever I'm writing and whatever I'm highlighting out of this whole table. Whole table you don't need to memorize. So first thing, MCQs for you. The reference male and the reference female criteria has slightly changed. First is the change in their age. The age is now 19 till 39 years. Earlier it was from 20 to 29 years. Now it is taken as 19 to 39 years. The BMI is still the same. We are taking 18.5 till 22.9 kilogram per meter square as the cutoff. That is the cutoff which is old, but the age criteria is changed, 19 till 39. And very importantly, that is what the important MCQ for you would also be, that the BMI, that the weight cutoff is for males, it is now 65 and female is 55. That is what the change is. 65 and 55 is the cutoff for them. The reference height is not delineated now. Earlier it was the reference height was there. So now the reference height is 95th percentile for males and for females respectively. The BMI, the height we have talked, basically you will be asked upon the age and you will be asked upon the weight. That is what you need to remember from this area. Second is the energy is changed. If you can see that we can have a heavy worker, moderate worker and a sedentary worker, male or a female. So you can see that the numbers have changed. You need to memorize these numbers. So what I have done is that there is a male and there is a female. I have memorized this as 1600 and other side it is 2100. And then you add a 500, 600 rule and over here it is 600, 700 rule. So 1600 plus 500 gives me 2100. 2100 plus 600 will give me 2700. On the other hand, on the male side, 2100 plus 600 will give me 2700. and 2700 plus 700 will be giving me 3400. So what I have remembered is only this plus 500, 600, 600, 700 rule. It will give you the same answers. You don't need to bang your head over here that it is 2130 or 2710 or 2110. If you can remember, you are super genius. But if you can't remember, that's okay. That's okay. You just remember this. Will you remember this? So I have tried to simplify it for you. If you recall that there should be 9 to 10 grams weight increase during pregnancy, that is still there. So you don't need to bang your head on this pregnant also. 55 you should remember, right? And then the calorie intake is still the same. For sedentary worker, pregnant female, you add 350. For lactating females, you add 600 and 520. When will you add 600? 600 is for 0 to 6 months of lactation. And from 6 months till 12 months of lactation, we will add, this is not 520, this is you add 520 calories to whatever she was taking. She was already taking 1600 calories. So you add 520 or you add 600 in case it's a sedentary. If it's a moderate, so you add from 2100, you add 600 and 520, whatever it is. Simple answers. But for your MCQ exam, please remember I have written first MCQ is you need to remember the reference male and reference female. Reference male is 65, reference female is 55. These are a couple of changes I have highlighted. So let us write down a summary of what you are learning. One is about the reference male and reference female guideline. Second, we have talked is about the energy guidelines in males and energy in the females, and there is a change in the lactating and pregnant females. Two things. Third thing, point number 3, there are changes in the fat intake also. In fat intakes for sedentary, moderate and heavy for males and for females. In case of males, it is 25, 30 and 40 grams per day of fat intake has to be there. This is a very important new change. Earlier, there was no criteria of visible fat intake. This is called as a visible fat intake. Visible fat intake should be for males, sedentary worker, moderate worker, heavy worker, 25, 30 and 40. In case of females, it has been taken as 20, 25 and 30. 20, 25 and 30 grams per day should be the fat intake in females. So please remember the summary of the story is you have talked about reference males and females, the energy and the fat intake. Next we switch over to the macronutrients. Now we come over to the other macronutrients. We have already talked about fat, right? But we also need to talk about the carbohydrate and the protein. Carbohydrate, for the first time we have got a guideline of how much carbohydrate to take. 130 grams per day of carbohydrate is to be taken by male and female. Please remember this. This is an important update for you. In case of pregnancy lactating, if you can remember, that's fine. Otherwise, please remember this can be asked that for male, female, how much is the carbohydrate intake. For protein intake, again, if you recall your previous guideline. So in the summary, let us write down the point number 4 that you need to remember. That is about the carbohydrate. Now there is a new criteria, 130 gram per day. Next is point number 5. We are going to write about the protein. Do you recall that how much was the protein intake that was required for normal adult? It was 1 gram per kg per day. Do you know this? Do you know this from your previous biochemistry or whatever sessions? Please remember this has been updated now. 1 gram is no more there. It is 0.83 grams per kg per day. This is 0.83 grams per kg per day. So the protein requirement has technically decreased. 65 kgs was taking 65 grams. Now it is not the case. Now please remember it is 54 and 45.7. Are we okay with this? This is again a very big change. Protein for females pregnant has also changed. It is 9. You add 9.5 in the second trimester, nothing to be added in first trimester, and you add a big amount of 22 grams in the third trimester. And in case of lactating females, you can remember it as 17 and 13. That's how I have remembered. 17 grams you add in case of this is all addition, right? It's in addition to whatever that female was taken. You add 17 grams in the first 6 months of lactation, and then you add 13 grams in the later part of lactation. So all these are points for you to remember. I'm sorry to say, but a lot of RDA changes have happened. So you can take this chart, you can take a snapshot of this chart, stick it on the wall and look at this chart every day. Whatever I'm highlighting, you need to remember that. Otherwise, it's not possible to memorize this whole table. So for protein, you have remembered that there are new guidelines. That is, you're going to take at the rate of 0.83. And in males, it is 54 and females is 45.7. And for males, it is 54 grams per day. And for females, it is 45.7 grams per day. So that is your point change number 5. Another important thing, point number 6, you already have discussed this when we talked about the proximate principles in the previous session, that there is now under the guideline, the guidelines have been formulated for dietary fiber. How much is the dietary fiber requirement? Please remember, in big bold letters, it is 40 gram of dietary fibers required for every 2000 kilocalories. In fact, this could be your prospective question. Every point could be your prospective question. So these all have been massive changes in the recommended dietary allowances. It is taken as dietary fiber is 20 gram per 1000 calories, or technically the recommended dietary allowances, they said 40 grams for 2000 kilocalories. That is per day required. Next important change is so what we have done till is all the macronutrients. Now let us come to the minerals and the micronutrients. If you talk about calcium, let us have a few points about calcium. So we will be discussing point number 7. So for calcium also, the recommended dietary allowances have changed. Do you know what were the calcium earlier dietary allowances? It was 600. So just 600, and now we have jumped over from 600 to 1000. What is the recommended dietary allowance as per 2020 update? It is 1000 milligrams per day of calcium, which is required for all ages, adult male, adult female, pregnant female. But for lactating female, it is 1200 milligrams per day. That is an important change for you. Both the things are important change for you. So for lactating and post-menopausal, please remember that the calcium requirements have changed. So you can remember this also. 1000 is for everyone, right? And for pregnant females, and of course also for lactating females, and for post-menopausal females, the requirement for calcium has been decently increased. In actual also, everybody was given 1000 only, right? So calcium levels have been changed. Also, you should remember that calcium is given 1:1. Calcium, the guidelines say the calcium and the phosphorus level should be 1:1. So same calcium and same phosphorus should be there in the same ratio. Next is point number 8. What about the sodium level and what about the potassium level? The sodium is taken to be 2000 milligrams per day. And the potassium level is fixed at 3500 milligrams per day. This sodium level 2000 milligrams per day comes to be around 5 grams of salt per day. So the salt intake is same, that is 5 grams, which is equal to 2000 milligrams of sodium is available from 5 grams of salt. So you need to remember this also about the salt intake. About the salt intake, that is, it has been put under guidelines to be less than 5 grams per day, which corresponds to a sodium level of 2000 milligrams, right? In case you can remember, please remember about magnesium also. The guidelines have changed that it is now 385 and 325 for male, female. And one of the most important, for which I decided that I will be doing a separate module, but because of the time paucity, I have been allowed to do it in this much time. So let's try to do it. Please remember that the iron guidelines have changed. Iron, earlier in males it was 17 and females it was 32. Now it has been reduced, iron requirement has been reduced in females based on their basal metabolic rate, and maybe because there is a lot of anemia which causes excess iron, lot of problems, iron overload, cardiotoxicity, so many things. So please remember that iron has been changed. In case of, that's a very big change. So iron in case of males is 19. In case of females, it is 29 milligrams per day. The units would be milligrams per day, 19 and 29. In case of pregnancy, it is still the same. In fact, they have increased a little bit, 40 and 23 in lactation. So please remember, iron is changed. Very big change. Question 9, iron is changed. Iron is changed in males and in females. Male is only 19, female is 29. So this has changed, and a massive difference. Of course, in pregnancy and lactation, it is still very high. In pregnancy, we are giving, I think, 40, and in lactation, it is 23 milligrams of iron per day. This is the dietary iron. Zinc, if you can remember, very good, 17 and 13. This can be remembered. Otherwise, it's not required. Yes, for iodine, the guideline for lactating females is 280, and for pregnant, it is 250. For males and females, it is 150 for adult males and adult females. And finally, coming to this last portion about the micronutrients changes in the recommended dietary allowance. I know you're going to kill me right now. You are going to, if I'm live in front of you, you're going to catch hold of me that what are you telling? But please remember, these are some of the important changes. Over here, what you see in the micronutrients, in the vitamins section, you don't need to memorize many things. Only thing that you need to focus is about the vitamin A and about the vitamin D. So mind it that the vitamin A guidelines, earlier they were different. Two questions on vitamin A can be asked. One is the conversion factor. You remember from beta carotene, the conversion, if you know it and if you have seen my previous lectures sometime or anybody's lecture, sometimes the beta carotene to retinol conversion, everyone must be saying that the multiplicative factor is 8. Right? So we used to have that 800, 400, 600 guidelines. So earlier for males, it was 600 and then you multiplied with 8 and so on. But now in this 2020 update, you need to remember that the conversion factor is not 8, it is 6. Conversion factor, that is again very big important MCQ. So you can add over here question number 10 that the vitamin A conversion index has been changed from 8 to 6. Okay. Next MCQ. In vitamin A, earlier we were giving different guidelines. You don't need to bang your head. In females, it was 600 and adults, it was 600, males, children, it was 400, pregnancy, it was 800, something like this. So it was 400, 600, 800. But now it is 1000 in case of males, 840 or 800 you can remember, and in females, 900 in pregnancy and 950 in lactating. That's a massive increase they have done. Vitamin A has been changed. So vitamin A guidelines are changed. It is 100,000 in case of males and 840 in case of females. In pregnancy and lactation, it is 900 and 950. So just remember, it is 900 to 1000 in males in pregnancy and lactation. So overall saying, it is roughly between 800 to 1000. That is a massive big change for vitamin A. So please remember that vitamin A conversion index and the vitamin A recommended dietary allowances, they have been massively increased. Point number 11, that is the last point. Point number 11 that you need to remember is for vitamin D. Earlier we were having 500, now it is taken as 600 stat, 600 international units per day. And considering India a tropical country where people are outside most of the times, the 600 would be sufficient with improvement in the physical activity and with improvement in the outdoor activities where you get a lot of sunshine, right? So these were a couple of changes which you need to remember for your recommended dietary allowances 2020, and these have been incorporated, and I think you should be memorizing these 10-11 points which you have done. So 11th point was about the vitamin D levels. So vitamin D levels have also been changed. So these are your 11 points which you need to remember. So with that, thank you so much for watching this module on micronutrients and the recommended dietary changes year 2020 update.
Hi guys, please subscribe my channels.